welcome to Crime in Court. This is Executed Justice for Justin Root. Today's episode is titled Final Report Says We're All Good. Trust us, bro. And by that title, you may be able to guess that we're going to be talking about the investigation into the execution of Justin Root by the police officers. They investigated themselves, and surprise, surprise, they didn't do anything wrong. So we're going to read through their police report and see what they have to say and how they justify and lie their butts off regarding what happened that day in February in 2020. So let us get started. Please hit that like button and let's begin. So this is, like I said, the Boston Police final report. This is the final report, um, written by Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan. If you listened to the show where I compiled all of the police officers' interviews in one episode, he was in attendance at a lot of those interviews because he's the sergeant of, the police department, and those were his men, under his watch, I'm assuming. So he was in attendance there. So he's the one that wrote this final report, and it's regarding the intentional firearm discharges on Friday, February 7th, 2020 in Brookline, Massachusetts. So this is specifically regarding the incident in Brookline. All right, so let's see. Uh, and I meant to say, this is to Brian Larkin, who is the Lieutenant Director, Commander, Firearm Discharge Investigation Team. So this was the team put together to investigate the firearm discharge of these officers. I, Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan, respectfully submit my final report pursuant to Boston Police Department Rule 303 regarding the intentional firearm discharges by Police Officer David Godin, Boston Police Officer Joseph McMenamy, Boston Police Officer Leroy Fernandez, Officer Corey Thomas, and Officer Brenda Figueroa, which occurred on Friday, February 7th, 2020 in Brookline, Massachusetts. Notice Trooper Keneally is not listed here because this is an investigation into his officers. So for Boston Police. On Friday, February 7th, 2020 at approximately 9:24 a.m., Boston police officers responded to the area of Fenwood Road and Vining Street for a 911 call reporting a male armed with a gun and threatening people. This individual was located in the area of Fenwood Road at Vining Street in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and Boston police officers intentionally discharged their firearms at this individual. The incident evolved into a motor vehicle pursuit with the suspect into the town of Brookline, Massachusetts, where the suspect, later identified as Justin Root, crashed his vehicle into civilian vehicles, stopped at a red light in Boylston Street. I think that's how it's pronounced, but you guys in Massachusetts pronounce everything funny to me in Chicago. So not funny. Like, I love it. It's great, but I think Boylston Street and Hammond Street. All right. So as a result of the collision, Root's vehicle became inoperable. Root exited his vehicle and fled on foot a short distance where several police officers again intentionally discharged their firearms. As a result of the discharges, Root was struck and died as a result of his injuries. The Boston Police Firearm Discharge Red Team was notified to respond. I requested that Sergeant Detective Broderick, assigned to the Firearm Discharge Investigation Team, respond to the Fenwood Road at Vining Street and take investigative command. Pursuant to Boston Police Department Rule 303, Sergeant Detective John Broderick was designated as the investigating officer in charge of the Boston scene. So remember, there's two scenes involved: the Boston scene, which is in front of Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is where the incident began, and then there was a car chase, and then we ended in Brookline. So Boston, Women in Brigham's is in, if you're not from there, and I'm not, but I had to do searching on this. So the hospital is in the city of Boston, and then Brookline, to my knowledge, is like a suburb of Boston. So um, that's my understanding of it. Anyway, so they're saying this officer, Sergeant Detective John Broderick, was designated as the investigating officer in charge of the Boston scene, hereinafter referred to as the Boston scene. I was designated as the Boston Police investigating officer in charge of the Brookline scene, herein referred to as the Brookline scene. Sergeant John Fanning of the Massachusetts State Police assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. You guys recognize that name? John Fanning. He did the searches on Sandra Birchmore's and Matthew Farwell's phone and somehow missed 32,000 32,000 text messages between the two of them where they talk about sexual activities that they had done together and the fact that he took her virginity at 15. But he missed all of those. John Fanning also missed the House Long to Die in Cold for the Jennifer McCabe's Google search at 2:27 a.m. Somehow he missed that too. So just just a reminder. Sergeant John Fanning of the Massachusetts State Police assigned to Norfolk County District Attorney's Office was assigned by Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey as his designee to conduct a criminal investigation into the officer's actions. So basically, John Fanning is Michael Morrissey's an extended hand of Michael Morrissey in this, which just means you can't trust anything out of either of them. I was tasked with investigating the officer's actions pursuant to department policies. Superintendent Paul Donovan, chief of the Bureau of Investigative Services, had overall command of the Boston Police investigations. Initial response. I arrived at the Brookline scene at approximately 9:45 a.m. I observed Boylston Street shut down at Dunster Street at the westbound lane. The eastbound lane was also shut down. I further observed what appeared to be the aftermath of a multi-vehicle collision in the intersection of Boylston Street at Hammond Street. I observed an unoccupied black Honda Civic, Massachusetts registration plate that had sustained front end damage, an unoccupied red Nissan Juke, Massachusetts, with a Massachusetts plate that had sustained extensive front end damage, and an unoccupied white Honda Accord, also with a Massachusetts plate, that also had sustained extensive damage. So it was a four-car collision if you include Justin Root's car. So Root potentially could have crashed into three other vehicles. And it's like meaning he might have crashed into one and then the other crashed into another. That's possible, but I think he crashed into all three of them. So his car was totaled, and he was, as you know, after this collision, he started stumbling and collapsed nearby. So it was quite an extensive collision here. As I walked further into the inner perimeter of the scene, I observed a silver Chevrolet Volt, Massachusetts registration. The Volt sustained extensive damage to the front, driver's side, and passenger side of the vehicle. I met with Sergeant Detective Thomas Pratt, assigned to the firearm discharge investigation team, who informed me that several Boston police officers and one Massachusetts state trooper had discharged their department issued firearms at the Brookline scene. As a result of the firearm discharges, Mr. Justin Root, which they spelled his name wrong there, was struck several times. Mr. Root was transported to the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center with life threatening injuries. Sergeant Detective Pratt further informed me that the department issued firearms that had been discharged were being secured by supervisors as evidence. I observed several spent cartridge casings. I further was informed that a replica firearm had been recovered by police officers from Root. I observed the replica firearm. So that's the image of I'm assuming that's the BB, the black, the BB gun that was likely planted or somehow, I don't know where it came from because he didn't, the family, as far as they know, he did not have a BB gun. They knew of his paintball guns. It was not charged, not loaded that day, and he had multiple other paintball guns in his car. So where'd the BB gun come from is my question. The Boston police officers that discharged their department issued firearms at the Brookline scene were identified as Officer Godin, McMenemy, Fernandez, Thomas, and Figueroa. Some of the Boston police officers were transported to local hospitals, or the officers were transported to local hospitals or examined on scene with non life threatening injuries. What? Whoa. Our power is like freaking out on us right now. Sorry, that distracted me. Um, why were the officers being taken to the scene? I'm so confused. Or taken to hospitals for like what? PTSD or something? They were so traumatized that they executed an innocent person that they had to go to the hospital? Probably. I met with Sergeant Detective Stephen Romano, assigned to the Youth Violence Strike Force, and Detective Melissa Lombardo, assigned to the Firearm Discharge Investigation Team, and directed them to collect all of the involved officers' body-worn cameras and department cellular phones. I spoke with Sergeant Detective Stephen Whitman, assigned to the Video Evidence Unit, and requested that the involved officers' body-worn camera footage be administratively restricted to prevent anyone other than the investigating officials and commanders to view the incident. I requested that Sergeant Detective Thomas Pratt take custody of all the department issued firearms, conduct a documentation of ammunition in each weapon, and then transfer the firearms to the Boston Police Firearms Analysis Unit. I met with Boston Police Superintendent Paul Donovan, Chief of the Bureau of Investigative Services, Colonel Christopher Mason, and Deputy Superintendent R. Scott Warmington of the Massachusetts State Police. It was determined that the Massachusetts State Police Detective Unit assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office would process the Brookline scene and lead the criminal investigation. Witnesses from either the Boston scene or the Brookline scene were directed to the Boston Police Homicide Unit, and accommodations were made for Boston and State Police to conduct the interviews. I learned that Mr. Root had been pronounced dead. The Brookline scene was processed by the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab Services Unit under the direction of Detective Lieutenant Gerard Madaliano. Madaliano. He was also in those interviews, a lot of the interviews with the officers, because he was doing the Brookline scene, I guess. So the Brookline scene was processed by him, commander of the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit. The collision scene was processed by the Boston Police Homicide Unit Fatal Collision Investigative Team under the direction of Directive Thomas Barrett. So now we know the players and kind of who's doing what in the investigations. The following vehicles sustained damage as a result of the collision at the intersection of Route 9 at Hammond Street in Brookline, Massachusetts. So it was the Honda Civic, Honda Accord, and the Nissan Juke. Um, the above three vehicles that were struck by the suspect vehicle were towed by members of the state police. Boston Police Department vehicle number 9534, assigned to Boston Police Officer Michael St. Peter, assigned to the K9 unit, sustained a projectile strike to the front hood, believed to have been struck at the Boston scene. Well, who hit it? Because it wasn't Justin. And Godin was in front of Michael St. Peter, so did Michael St. Peter hit his own dashboard? Or what's the word? Front hood? He must have, right? Unless another officer fired at the scene there. I'm confused by that. Did he strike his own vehicle? All right, so the scene description. Boylston Street at Hammond Street in Brookline, Massachusetts is located in Norfolk County. Boylston Street is also known as Route 9. Route 9 is a 135-mile long major east-west highway in Massachusetts. The incident scene is a divided highway with two lanes of traffic in each direction. This intersection is a commercial area that encompasses a gas station, supermarket, and several smaller businesses in a strip mall type commercial space. The discharge scene occurred off of the westbound lane after Hammond Street in a mulch area adjacent to the Star Market parking lot. All right, so the civilian witnesses, we get to hear what they had to say. But remember, this is in the words of the law enforcement. So whatever interviews they had with the whoever's doing the interviewing, whoever was taking down the notes, and then they put up their report, and then that report was given to this guy, and then he's doing a report based on somebody else's report. So it's probably like hearsay upon hearsay, and you're taking that officer's word for it, basically, whoever is giving you the rundown of these interviews and the incidents. So it goes to their credibility. Do you find them credible? The people that are taking these interviews and whatnot too. So I don't know. I don't know, but we'll see because it's in their words, right? So it's their words based on what somebody else said. All right, so here's the following civilian interviews were audio recorded and are contained in the electronic file. On Friday, February 7th, 2022, at approximately 2:01 p.m. Boston, police detective Joseph King, assigned to the firearm discharge investigative team, and Massachusetts State Trooper David DiCicco, assigned to the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit, conducted an audio recorded interview of blank. There's going to be a lot of redactions here. The following is a summary of Blank's interview and not intended to be a verbatim account of his interview, right? So it's a summary. Like I said, it's the words of the officers, potentially, layer upon layer of telephone here. Plus, it's not well, they do have the audio. Okay, so it's audio recorded. So it is still an audio recording. So it wasn't, from a report from someone and then somebody else took that report and took it down. So I was wrong in that. This is an audio recording that they are giving you they're giving you their summation again in their perspective, their words. So here we go. All right. So Blank stated that on the day of the incident, he had received a page from the Brigham and Women's Hospital informing him of a shooting case at the hospital. There's going to be grammatical errors here, so bear with me. At the time, This witness received the page. He was approaching the intersection of Route 9 and Hammond Street. They stated that he drove an additional 10 meters and came to a full stop because of a red light. He stated that he observed police vehicles approaching westbound, probably a block away from his location. He stated that he had stopped directly in front of the Star Market. Diagonal to his left was the CVS. He said that while he was stopped at the light, he heard a crash and seconds later observed a white male, about 5'11", 6 feet tall, bald or short hair, dressed in a black jacket with gray pants, walking on the sidewalk as he's limping. He said that the individual turned towards a grass area between the sidewalk and parking lot of the Star Market. This witness stated that as this individual reached the top of the area, police cars had already arrived and police officers were on foot with their guns drawn. This witness stated that the police officers were facing the individual and pointing their firearms at him, screaming at him. He stated that he believed that the officers were asking him to put his hands up, go down on his knees to the ground. He stated that the officer stated this multiple times to the individual. He stated that the individual turned around facing the officers. As he did that, with his right hand, he took his hand under his coat, and at that time, the police discharged their firearms. This witness stated that he believed officers discharged 10 to 15 times. Okay. On Saturday, February 8th, 2020, Boston Police Sergeant Detective Richard Lewis, assigned to the Firearm Discharge Investigation Team, and Massachusetts State Trooper Yuri Buchanan, you all know him, assigned to the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit. They conducted an audio recorded, so they do know how to audio record interviews, even if they didn't do it in Karen Reed, but they did it in this case. So that's worth noting here. All right. So this is the second witness interview. This witness stated that he was in the area of the Davio in Chestnut Hill when he observed the traffic a little backed up. He stated that he heard sirens approaching from behind him. He stated that the officer passed him. He stated that as the traffic started moving, there was an opening in the road and he was able to cut across. He stated there was a car in the street which appeared damaged and the wheel was hanging off the side of the vehicle. That was likely Justin's car. He stated that he observed a man on the bank closet or closest to the road. He observed a man on the bank closest to the road stumbling, trying to get away. He stated that this individual appeared clearly injured. Stated that there were several police officers running and surrounding the individual, hollering like crazy. That's a quote. He also stated that he couldn't know what the officers were saying, but the individual wouldn't stop, but he wasn't moving fast. He stated that it seemed to him that one of the police officers actually grabbed a hold of the individual and was trying to get him on the ground. That would have been when McMenemy was kicking him to the ground, like most likely. He stated that somehow this individual got loose and then moved off to the left and up over a little hill. What? He stated that the police officers continued to scream, "Stop, stop, stop." Then this witness stated that there were multiple gunshots. So he's saying that Justin got up and moved? That's not even like that's wasn't even argued by the police that he got loose and then moved off to the left. Hmm. That's not even something that the police were arguing, that he was trying to move away. Just that he was trying to resist, trying to stand, trying to reach for his gun. This witness stated that the police officers continued to scream, "Stop, stop, stop." and there were multiple gunshots, stated that the individual fell to the ground next to the bush, so he was unable to see him clearly. Justin wasn't standing when he was shot. There's so many uh obscure things in here that I'm like scratching my head. What? This witness stated that the 10 police officers and a state trooper did approach this individual immediately. He stated that he recorded a video that this is the guy who was recording. He recorded a video that depicts actions after the incident. So it was turned over. It was contained in the investigation file. I am assuming. I don't have access to it, but that's something that I guess they were able to look at, and yet still that didn't help in the litigation against these officers, which makes me irate. All right, so this witness stated that a fire truck arrived on scene with additional police officers. He stated that he then received a text informing him of a shooting at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. He then stated that he works with Redacted, who was behind him in traffic and informed him that he observed this individual reach into his jacket. So there's another one saying, oh, yeah, he reached into his jacket. Were these witnesses coached before they were recorded? Like, who knows? This person stated that he did not observe the individual with a gun, but he could easily have had one. He stated that he was unaware of how many shots he heard, but guessed between 10 and 15 shots. I'm feeling like these guys are coached. I've only read two so far, but that's kind of my take. All right, this next one was done February 7th at 2:24 p.m. Boston Police Detective Joseph King and Yuri Buchanan did an audio recording of this witness. At the time of the incident, this witness stated that he was on his way to work heading eastbound on Route 9 in the left lane, about to take a left turn onto Hammond Street. He stated that he was behind a green water truck. He stated that he observed what he believed to be an accident on the other side of Route 9. He stated that he heard what he believed to be police officers responding to the accident. He stated that the uniformed, when the uniformed, I almost said uninformed, they are uninformed because they don't know how to police. They don't know how to de escalate situations. So they are quite uninformed. This witness stated that when the uniformed police officers exited from their vehicles, they had their guns in their hands, which was not something that he had seen on a regular basis. So they went in with guns drawn, which we've already gone over. And yes, they just went in not assessing the situation, guns drawn, ready to fire. It didn't take very much for them. It was like, a little hairpin trigger would like set them off to fire at that point because they were already ready. This person stated that the police officers were running and approached someone that he had not seen. He described that the officers were yelling at the individual to get down, stop moving, stated that the officers were loud enough that he could hear them across the street with his windows in his vehicle up. He stated that this individual was lying on his side, trying to pick himself up. So this is one of the first eyewitnesses that I think is more honest because he's actually saying Justin was laying on his side and trying to get up, like trying to pick himself up because like at that moment he couldn't breathe. He couldn't like he just collapsed. He was struggling to breathe. His chest, I believe they said that it was filling up with blood at that point. Um so he was in dire m- medical he needed medical attention severely. And instead of doing something to de escalate the situation or to try to even assess the situation, They just went in there with their guns blazing. This particular witness is a good witness for the Root family because he's saying uh, the cops came in, guns in their hands, ready to fire, and this individual was laying on his side, whereas the other two were like, well, he's standing or he's moving. Like what? What? Nobody can get it straight here. Anyways, let's move on. So he continues saying that he thought to himself that he would have been spread eagle by now with all the verbal commands. So this witness would have been spread eagle by then. So you kind of can tell that maybe Justin wasn't in a proper or appropriate place to even be responding to these officers. He was so medically what's the word I'm looking for? He needed medical attention so desperately, and he was struggling so badly to breathe, to survive, to stand, to do anything. And these officers couldn't figure that out by looking at him. They just wanted to go in there and shoot, I guess. I don't know. This case baffles me. All right, so the last thing he says is that the individual continued to move, and then he heard shots being fired. So it's not like Justin stood still, like he didn't freeze or anything because he was struggling probably to breathe. He was probably trying to communicate too with them, and they weren't having it. All they wanted to do was to stop the threat, according to them, when he wasn't even a threat. This witness stated that the shots happened very quick in duration, stated that the individual was not moving following the shots. All right, next witness, 1226. On the day of the incident, Michael Burns or something, and State Trooper Matthew Dunn. We've heard of him too, from Sandra Birchmore, and he might have come into the Karen Reed case, but I'm not sure. But he's definitely was one of the investigators, I think, for Sandra Birchmore too. Anyways, this eyewitness says at the time of the interview, the eyewitness was 15 years of age, and his mother, redacted's name, was present for the interview. This witness stated that he had left his house around 9:30 a.m. and was walking to the Hammond Street intersection when he looked up and saw a car drive through the Hammond Street intersection and strike three vehicles. He stated that 1 to 2 minutes later, approximately 12 police officers arrived on scene and thought they were there for the accident, but they continued through the intersection. He stated that he then heard 12 to 15 gunshots. He stated that he turned and ran home. Scary thing for a kid. This next one is Detective William Dugan at 10:36 a.m. the day of the incident and Yuri Buchanan. At the time of the incident, this witness was working at the Cumberland Farms gas station next to CVS off of Route 9 near Hammond Street. This witness stated that he heard a crash and observed a car doing 360s. Really? Well, maybe he was turning after the fact of the accident. Maybe he was seeing the back end of the collision, the tail end of that collision. So yeah, he saw a car doing 360s down Route 9, and then the car stopped at the end of the driveway. He stated that he went out and observed the vehicle damaged. He stated that as he went back into his kiosk to call 911, he then observed blue lights coming down Route 9 towards the gas station. He stated that a lot of police officers were coming out from Route 9 and from the parking lot, all running towards the building where the bathroom is. He stated that he heard police officers repeatedly yelling to someone to get down. He stated that he could not see the officers, but he could only hear them. He stated that he then heard about 5 shots fired. So now this guy only heard 5. Okay. And he stated that there were a couple of shots simultaneously. Well, maybe that's why, because it did happen like 15 shots within 3 seconds. So, yeah, you were hearing multiple shots at the same time. This person stated that he did not see the discharge, but only heard it. Next one is February 7th, 2020, Boston Police Detective Timothy Evans and State Trooper Keith Pantazellos, and they interviewed this witness. This is just a transcript. This witness stated that he was in the vehicle and headed into the city when he observed a patrol car with his lights on come up from behind him and pass him. He stated that a short time later, police vehicles came from the direction of Boston, traveling in the opposite direction. He stated that this drew his interest and he began to pay attention. He stated that he heard several officers stating, "Get down." He stated that he looked to his left and saw a 25 to 40-year-old black male in the hedge across from the shopping center on the ground. So this person saw a black male who was anywhere from 25 to 40 years old. So did you see how eyewitnesses are a bunch of garbage? You all remember different things, and it's like, well, so what's fact and what's true? So all those eyewitnesses that said, "Oh yeah, we never saw John come into the house," baloney. Anyways, okay, so eyewitness statements are garbage, is what we're basically finding out. So this was a black male across from the shopping center on the ground, stated that this individual attempted to get up, at which time the officers then discharged their firearms. This witness stated that the individual did not comply with the officers' verbal commands. He stated that the duration of the shots was a half second to 2 seconds. This next interview takes place the day of the incident at 9:20 a.m. Richard Lewis with the BPD and David DeChico. We know him. He and Michael Proctor were trying to get the medical examiner to change their determination as to cause of death for John O'Keefe. That's David DeChico. So they did this interview, and this witness stated that he was sitting in the corner of Starbucks to the far left when he noticed flashing lights. He estimated that Starbucks is approximately 200 yards from the incident scene. He stated that he then observed an officer with his weapon and an officer to his right with his weapon drawn. He stated that he observed a suspect coming off the road and crawling in the bushes. He stated that he believes that officers were giving verbal commands, but he couldn't hear anything. He then observed gunfire. He stated that he observed the officers on the right fire his weapon. He stated that he heard 6 or 7 gunshots. So now it's 6 or 7 gunshots as opposed to 10 to 15, I mean, it's all perspective and how you perceive things. This person stated that he alerted everyone in Starbucks to get down. He stated that he dropped to the floor and then observed 2 officers or more maneuver towards the suspect. This next witness interview was audio recorded the day of the incident with Timothy Evans with BPD and Trooper Keith Pantazellos again. This witness stated that he pulled into the Star Market parking lot to retrieve his cellular phone that had dropped on the floor. He stated that while he was in the parking lot, he heard a police officer screaming at a guy to get down, get down. He stated that he looked into his mirror and observed this individual in a grassy area just off of Route 9. He stated that he could also observe 3 uniformed police officers, or uninformed, both. Um, he stated that it appeared that the individual tried to get down but then stood back up. So now this person's saying he was trying to stand up, which I don't know if he even could. And we have that testimony from the Good Samaritan slash EMT that came running to his side, who said he wouldn't have been able to stand up in his condition. This witness stated that the police officers yelled at him again to get down, stated that it appeared that the individual went down and then he heard, "He's got a gun." This witness stated that he then heard gunfire, stated that he saw a flash from the officer's gun, stated that he ducked down in his front seat. He stated that he heard multiple additional gunshots, stated that after the shot, he got up and he was approached by a uniformed police officer and was removed from his vehicle. He stated that he observed EMS treating the individual on the ground. Why'd they get him out of his vehicle? I guess to get a statement out of him. This next one, date of the incident, same people, Timothy Evans and Keith Pantazellos. This witness stated that he heard some loud noises like pop, 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 pop. He stated that the sounds were very quick in session. He stated that he could not see anything from his home office because of obstructions. This next one was taken same day of the incident at 4:05 p.m. with BPD detective Patricia Durant and somebody assigned to the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. Just caught my attention. And then Massachusetts State Lieutenant Michael Gracia, who is also with the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. What's this task force coming in for? The FBI Violent Task Force. Anyways, so this was what this witness says. Blank stated that she was in the area of Hammond Street at Route 9 and she heard sirens approaching. She stated that she observed a heavily damaged vehicle. She stated that the police arrived on scene. She stated that she observed an individual on the ground and observed the police surrounding him. She stated that the police began to shoot. She stated that she began to video the incident. So she's another one that videoed it or that took out her phone and took a recording. And then she stated that she heard officers state that the individual was still moving. Is that true? Did that happen? I don't know. That's interesting. This next one is February 7th, date of the incident at 11:35 a.m. BPD detective Kevin Finn and Michael Proctor. Here we got an appearance by Michael Proctor. The following is a summary of this particular interview. This stated that he was in the Star Market parking lot located in the intersection of Route 9 at Hammond Street in Brookline. He stated that he was in his vehicle and facing Route 9. He stated that he heard sirens and looked to his left and thought that he heard what was to be an incident. He stated that he began to exit his vehicle when he observed a male run around the corner with a dark jacket. He stated that he observed 7 to 10 Boston and state police officers with their firearms out yelling, "Stop, get down, don't move, drop it, and freeze." Sorry, I had to pause for a second because my dog was being a butthead and I had to yell at him for a minute. So I might have already read this sentence and I have to read it again. So I'm sorry about that. I can't remember where I left off, is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, so this witness stated that he observed 7 to 10 Boston and state police officers with their firearms out yelling, "Stop, get down, don't move, drop it, freeze." I'm not sure if I read that yet or not. Sorry. My dog. Anyways, I have stuff going in the crock pot, so he thinks it's time to eat, even though it's not, but he's smelling it and he wants to eat. So he's being annoying. Anyways, sorry for the interruption. This witness, stated that he observed the individual turning towards officers and then the officers started firing. This witness stated that he was unable to determine if the individual started firing at officers. So No one so far has said that Justin did fire at the officers or had a gun. This person stated that following the shots, he again exited from his vehicle, approached the scene, and heard the officers telling the individual to not to move. He stated that the ambulance arrived quickly on the scene. He stated that he took pictures of the scene following the shots, which depicted officers standing around. An entire phone extraction of blank cellular phone was done, and it contained it in the file, and is contained in the file. This next one, another one with Trooper DeChico and Kevin Finn of the BPD. The day of the incident, 12:37 p.m. This witness stated that she was parked in the parking lot of the Star Market when she heard a car coming that was making noises as it was operating on rims. She stated that she then observed the car smash into the curb. She stated that she observed a tall, skinny white male wearing a long coat exit from the vehicle and saw him walk up a dirt hill, a dirt mulch hill, and fall twice. Easy for me to say. She stated that she observed this individual. Yeah, he fell twice. He got up, he fell once, stood back up, and fell again. And then that's when she was able to approach him. She stated that she jumped from her car, being a former EMT, and when she approached him, she observed that he was covered in blood. She stated that she grabbed one of the individual's shoulders and attempted to lift him. She stated that the individual appeared to be lights off, nobody home. She stated that he was holding his chest area and she believed that he was having a heart attack. She stated that he was trying to get up. She stated that she heard someone screaming for her to run. She stated that when she turned around, she observed several officers with their firearms drawn. She stated that she ran back to her car located approximately 30 feet away. She stated that before she could reach the grass area, she heard gunshots. She stated that she entered her car and waited for the police. That's scary. Even for her to be there and then they tell her to run and next thing you know your back's turned and shot all your shots fired. And then for her to say he was lights out, nobody home. And then all these other people are saying, well, he was reaching for his gun, he was reaching for his jacket, he was trying to stand up, he was moving around. Well, he might have been writhing around because he was in medical need and he didn't know how to communicate that, and his body was reacting in ways that he couldn't necessarily control. So I think, if people are saying like he was moving, he wouldn't stop moving, well, maybe he was moving because he was struggling and trying to um, trying to survive, basically. So the following witnesses were interviewed. Okay, so they just give us a whole list of all the witnesses, but it's redacted anyways. All right, so here are the police officer interviews. These are like summaries, I guess. So, Police Officer David Godin on Wednesday, February 12th, 2020, Massachusetts State Police Detective Lieutenant Gerard Madaliano and Boston Police Sergeant Detective John Broderick conducted an audio recorded interview of Police Officer David Godin at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office related to both scenes. Police Officer Godin was represented by attorney Kenneth Anderson. This is a summary of Police Officer Godin's interview related to the incident in Brookline and his knowledge at the time he discharged his firearm in Brookline. This is not intended to be a verbatim account. Okay. Police Officer Godin stated that he responded to a radio call in the area of Vining Street at Fenway Road for a person with a gun who was driving a black Dodge Colt. It was silver. So there's just so many things wrong with this, with the investigation and all of it. The facts. that are in this case, facts, quote unquote. Police Officer Godin stated on his second loop around of this intersection, he encountered a white male with glasses, brown hair, who informed him that someone was shooting up there. No one was shooting. No one was shooting, so that's a lie. Police Officer Godin stated that he exited from his vehicle near 75 Fenway Road when he observed a male wearing a black jacket, which was open, black pants, running down the sidewalk, later identified as Justin Root. Police Officer Godin stated that Root was yelling, "I am law enforcement, go up there, I am law enforcement." Police Officer Godin stated that he was approximately within 3 feet of Root when Root pulled a firearm from his waist and pointed it at him. Police Officer Godin stated that he immediately drew his firearm and issued verbal commands to Root for him to drop the gun. Police Officer Godin stated that he discharged his firearm. Police Officer Godin stated that he began to back up and create space when he fell over the curb. He was nowhere near the curb when he fell. He was starting to fall well before the curb. He just wanted to say that he fell on the curb because he just tripped on his own, and that's embarrassing. So police officer Godin stated that he recalled saying to himself to get up, he's going to kill you. If you don't get up, he's going to kill you. Okay. Police officer Godin stated that he observed Root again and his firearm jammed. Police Officer Godin stated that he conducted a magazine change. Police Officer Godin stated that he also noticed that he had lost his portable radio. Godin stated that while he was on the ground, he can hear shots being fired and believed that Root was shooting at him. Godin was unaware that Police Officer St. Peter was firing at Root as Root was standing over him with what he believed to be a gun, firing it. But as we know, he didn't have a gun. Police Officer Godin stated that Root fled in his vehicle. Godin stated that he returned to his vehicle, notified operations of the officer involved shooting, and pursued Root. He notified operations that he had shot Root during the encounter. Godin stated that was joined by other officers in the pursuit. During the pursuit, he stated that one of the cruisers came from his left side and tried to strike Root's vehicle. The pursuit stopped for a couple of seconds, and officers approached Root's vehicle before he fled again. Police Officer Godin stated that he came into an intersection in Brookline where he observed numerous cars damaged and observed Root's vehicle on the right side of the road. Police Officer Godin stated that he pulled past cars and observed Root lying on the corner near the shopping plaza. Godin stated that he observed a lady approaching Root and all of the officers were yelling at her to get back. Godin stated that he was now joined by 4 or 5 officers, all issuing verbal commands. Godin stated that Root is in a seated position, leaning to his right side. Police Officer Godin stated that at this time he observed Root reach with his right hand into his jacket and an officer yelling gun. Police Officer Godin stated that an officer alerted her other officers that Root was reaching for a gun. Godin stated that at this time he discharged his firearm. We know there's a bunch of lies in there. Oh, sorry. Now we've got deliveries and the dog, of course, just has to bark. Apologies. All right. So now this is Michael St. Peter's interview or recap of his interview on Wednesday, February 12th. BPD Sergeant Detective John Broderick and uh, MSP Detective Lieutenant Gerard Medaliano were in conducted an interview with Michael St. Peter, and attorney Kenneth Anderson was there. It was determined that police officer St. Peter did not discharge a firearm at the Brookline scene. Please see Sergeant Detective John Broderick's report for a summary of his interview. Police officer St. Peter stated that in relation to the Brookline scene, after discharging his firearm at the Boston scene, he believed that the suspect had been shot. Police officer St. Peter stated that the suspect returned to his vehicle, was still armed with what he believed to be a firearm, and fled. Police officer St. Peter stated that at this time he believed that the suspect had fired his weapon at an individual. St. Peter stated that he pursued the suspect on Huntington Avenue toward Brookline. He stated that during the pursuit, an officer attempted to disable the suspect's vehicle. That was McMenemy. St. Peter stated during the pursuit he heard a broadcast that officers had lost sight of the suspect. St. Peter stated that he turned off of Route 9 to search for the suspect's vehicle. St. Peter stated that he turned into the Star Market parking lot. He observed several cars and he heard shots being fired. St. Peter stated that he did not observe the shooting. St. Peter stated that he deployed his canine partner and approached the incident scene and observed several Boston and Brookline police officers along with a state trooper. Police officer St. Peter stated that he approached the suspect with his canine and other officers. St. Peter stated that he returned to his car to put the canine back in his vehicle. St. Peter stated that he never saw a suspect weapon. So he never saw a weapon. He just shot at the Boston scene because Godin shot. So he shot. He never saw a weapon. Police officer St. Peter stated that he did not discharge his firearm at the Brookline scene. Joseph McMenemy, Wednesday, February 12th. Sergeant Fanning and Detective Richard Lewis conducted a interview with Joseph McMenemy, same attorneys present. This is a summary. Police officer Joseph McMenemy was assigned with police officer Robert Lumiere. Lumiere? I don't know. I'm assuming that's how you say it. At the time of the incident, police officer Lumiere, like like Beauty and the Beast, Lumiere, was at the station writing a report. So his partner was at the station writing a report. Joseph McMenemy stated that he heard a radio call for a person with a gun. McMenemy stated that he believed the call to be a road rage incident and continued back to the station to pick up his partner. McMenemy stated that he then heard police officer Godin confirm that a gun was flashed, shots being fired. The only shots fired were by police officers. And then a code 303, which is an officer involved shooting. Again, the only shooting was done by the officers. The only injuries were caused by the officers and the officers' misconduct in this case and escalating the situation in this case. Police officer McMenemy stated that he immediately responded to the area where he observed cruisers. McMenemy stated that when he first arrived in the area of Huntington Ave, he observed police cruisers on Huntington traveling outbound towards Brookline and believed the cruisers were responding to the scene. McMenemy stated that he did not see the suspect vehicle at first and did not realize the cruisers were pursuing a vehicle. McMenemy quickly realized the officers were pursuing a vehicle. McMenemy stated he believed they were pursuing a vehicle that was just involved in a shooting. McMenemy stated that he checked Huntington Avenue and saw the oncoming lane of traffic was clear. Police officer McMenemy stated that due to the seriousness of offenses, he went into the left lane of oncoming traffic to see if he could get around the other police vehicles. Police Officer McMenemy. So there's one thing that he did incorrectly, and he felt like he needed to justify it by saying, due to the seriousness of it, I just broke the law and went in this left lane and did what I needed to do to pass other vehicles in a high speed or a high stress um lots of tension type of situation where, anything could go wrong and he's doing crap like that. McMenemy stated that he was able to pull aside the suspect vehicle. Police officer McMenemy stated that he attempted a pit maneuver, which he described as ramming the suspect vehicle on the driver's side. The maneuver brought the suspect vehicle to a complete stop. McMenemy ran to the suspect vehicle, drew his firearm, at which time the suspect was able to evade capture and the pursuit continued. McMenemy stated the pursuit continued on Route 9 into Brookline as the suspect gained distance. McMenemy stated that he last saw the suspect when he went over a hill. Police officer McMenemy stated that he broadcasted that he had lost sight of the suspect. McMenemy stated that he continued straight for approximately 30 more seconds when he observed a motor vehicle accident. McMenemy stated that he observed the suspect vehicle unoccupied. Police officer McMenemy stated that he exited from his vehicle, drew his firearm. McMenemy stated that he observed a white male stumbling on the ground near the shopping mall exit. McMenemy stated that he ran toward this white male. McMenemy stated that a woman had approached the suspect to assist him. McMenemy stated that he ordered the woman to get away, and she immediately did. McMenemy stated that he believed that the woman had made physical contact with the suspect. McMenemy stated that the woman retreated back to a vehicle he later saw her sitting in. McMenemy stated that he issued the suspect repeated verbal commands to get on the ground, show me your hands, get on the ground. McMenemy stated that the suspect was crouching down but standing, looking at him. How do you crouch and stand at the same time? I don't know. And everybody else said he was down on the ground. Officer McMenemy stated that he approached the suspect and with his left leg kicked him to the ground. McMenemy stated that the suspect stood back up or went to one knee as other officers were issuing verbal commands. McMenemy stated that a state trooper was to his right side and was also issuing verbal commands. McMenemy stated that he believed that the suspect began to grab at his unzipped jacket, which revealed the backside of the handle of a pistol. Police officer McMenemy stated that the pistol appeared holstered, that he described as an old detective's holster. McMenemy stated that the pistol was positioned in the area of the suspect's chest. McMenemy stated that the suspect grabbed his jacket with one of his hands as his other hand went into his jacket and reached for the handgun. In response, police officer McMenemy discharged his department-issued firearm. McMenemy stated that he believed he discharged between 4 to 10 times. Police officer McMenemy stated that the suspect's hands were still moving. McMenemy stated that he continued to point his firearm at the suspect as Officer Figueroa approached the suspect with State Trooper Connolly, who retrieved the suspect's weapon. McMenemy stated that he reholstered his gun. McMenemy stated that he discharged because he was in fear that the suspect was going to shoot him. And there was a theme in all of the officers, except for one. All the officers saying that they were afraid and they kept seeing his hands move and they kept seeing him trying to get up, even though that's not what the credible most of the eyewitnesses said. Many of the eyewitnesses did not say that he was, and the one that specifically was interacting with him, she said he couldn't get up. So there's that. All right, next is Leroy Fernandez, who was interviewed February 12th, by Fanning and Richard Lewis. Police Officer Fernandez was assigned with Police Officer Corey Thomas and responded to the Brigham and Women's Hospital for an officer calling for shots being fired. Police Officer Fernandez stated that he believed a suspect had been shot. Fernandez stated that he was approaching the area of Tremont Street at Huntington Avenue. He observed cruisers in pursuit of a vehicle. Fernandez stated that he joined into the pursuit. He stated that the pursuit continued on to Route 9 towards Route 128. Fernandez stated that he was coming down Route 9. He observed a debris area indicative of an accident. Fernandez stated that he navigated through the accident and exited from his vehicle. Fernandez stated that he approached a mulched area and heard an officer stating, "Show me your hands." Fernandez stated that the suspect reached into what appeared to be a jacket as if he was gesturing to pull something. Fernandez stated that in fear that the suspect was reaching for a firearm to kill him or shoot one of the fellow officers, he discharged his firearm. Police Officer Fernandez stated that he believed he discharged his firearm twice. Fernandez stated that a Massachusetts state trooper approached the suspect in order to secure him and located a firearm under the suspect. Well, there was no firearm. They claim there was a BB gun that was found under on Justin's chest in the mulch. I don't know. There were tons of different locations where they said it was found, this supposed BB gun. So it's problematic. Their story about this BB gun, and we don't know if Justin even had a BB gun. We don't believe he did. Family does not believe he did. All right, next up is Corey Thomas, who he's the only one that doesn't seem coached because he didn't have an interview with uh, individuals before this interview. He wasn't spoken to with other Boston police officers and attorneys and things like the other ones were. So you can kind of tell that they were coached. All right, this was Romer, Antoine, and Mark Sullivan were the ones who did the interview. Officer Thomas was assigned with Police Officer Leroy Fernandez on the date of the incident. Officer Thomas stated that he observed on the CAD a call for a person with a gun at 40 Fenway Road. Where it there's like so many different streets and intersections. I have no idea, and I'm not from there, so I have no idea. Maybe these mean the same things, but I have no idea. I'm very lost. Police Officer Thomas stated that he and his partner began to respond to the area. Police Officer Thomas stated that as they approached Huntington Avenue, he observed a silver vehicle being pursued by police cruisers. Fernandez, this is Thomas, so that's an error. Thomas stated that they joined into the pursuit, which traveled in Brookline. Officer Thomas stated during the pursuit he learned that shots had been fired with a suspect and an officer involved shooting had occurred. Officer Thomas stated that as they went through the Hammond Street intersection, he observed extensive damage and further observed the suspect's vehicle a little further ahead. Police Officer Thomas stated that he exited from his vehicle and ran to where he observed another officer speaking with the suspect. Officer Thomas stated that he could see the suspect's arms but could not see his hands. Officer Thomas described the suspect's hands as being close to his chest and was moving erratically. Officer Thomas stated that there were multiple officers in front of the suspect issuing verbal commands to get on the ground and to show his hands. Thomas stated that there was little available to cover. There's little available to cover. Oh, for them to get behind for cover. Officer Thomas stated that the suspect did not comply with any verbal commands. Thomas stated that he heard a gunshot and believed that the suspect had shot at officers. In response, Thomas stated that he discharged his firearm. So he's the only one that doesn't say he was trying to get up, he was struggling, he wasn't complying, he wasn't he was moving his hands rapidly or whatever. I can't remember the exact words that they were saying. Erratically. I think erratically was moving his hands erratically and stuff like that. So he doesn't say those things and he never says he saw a gun. Officer Brenda Figueroa, Sergeant Ramir Antoine, and Mark Sullivan interview her. So, police officer Figueroa stated that at approximately 9 a.m., the dispatcher notified officers of person with a gun at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. Police officer Figueroa stated she believed she was assigned at the primary unit. Police officer Figueroa stated that she recalled being in the area of Roxbury Crossing when an officer broadcasted that shots had been fired. Figueroa stated that she had heard an additional broadcast that the suspect was taking off. Figueroa stated that she joined into the pursuit. Figueroa stated that during the course of the pursuit, she learned that a valet had been shot. Figueroa stated that she believed that the suspect she was pursuing was shooting innocent people. She didn't say that she thought, no, she was afraid. She said she was afraid he was going to shoot innocent people. She didn't say that she believed. Am I wrong on that? I thought she said she thought he was going to, and that's why she shot because she was so afraid that he was going to shoot her fellow officers, or some innocent person. Figueroa stated that she observed a motor vehicle accident and then observed everyone's brake lights illuminate. Figueroa stated that she activated her body-worn camera and exited her vehicle. Figueroa stated that she drew her department-issued firearm, knowing that this had started as a firearm call. Figueroa stated that she observed the suspect on his knees. She stated that she begged the suspect. She used the words, "We were begging him to get down and show us his hands." Officer Figueroa stated that the suspect smirked at officers like a laugh, at which time Officer Figueroa observed the suspect pulling out a black firearm. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. In reviewing police officer Figueroa's body-worn camera footage, the audio captured verbal commands of get down, and let me see your hands. As a result of the placement of the body-worn camera, when Officer Figueroa raised her hands to discharge, the camera was blocked. So we don't see what happens. After the shots, the officers indicate the suspect is still armed with a firearm and is still moving. Figueroa handcuffed the suspect and Trooper Connealy secured the suspect's weapon, at which point they determined it was a replica firearm. Or maybe you determined, oh shit, he actually didn't have a gun. It's a paintball gun, it's a toy, and we just shot this guy for nothing. And somebody get a BB gun real quick. I wonder, I wonder where the nearest BB gun sale stores are. Where could they have gotten one? I mean, I'm sure the station probably has some in evidence that they could have used if they needed to in a pinch, in a bind. They could have planted, I mean, hell, they could have planted a real gun if they wanted to do that, I'm sure. So the BB gun thing, I still do think that they planted it. I'm curious to see if somebody was like, "Oh, shoot, we need to get something in place of this," and maybe they were able to find a BB gun nearby. I don't know. Before the whole team came in to process everything. Anyways, that's just a little aside from me. Officer Figueroa stated that she was afraid she was going to get shot or someone else was going to get shot, and in response, she discharged her firearm. Figueroa stated that she approached the suspect with a Massachusetts state trooper and observed a black firearm that the suspect had, but she couldn't remember anything about the firearm. The weapon here, it says the weapon is later determined to be a black Crossman 4.5 millimeter, whatever, some kind of BB gun. Um, but remember, uh, in her interview, she was like, "Yeah, I saw a black gun, but I don't remember when. I don't remember how. I don't remember where. I just remember I saw it. I was just so stressed, and I was in so much shock, and I can't remember any of the details, but I remember I saw it. So don't worry, it was there. I just can't remember." And then the next person who is interviewed, we hear from Massachusetts State Trooper Keneally, and he's like, yeah, so I took his left hand and I told her take the right hand and she did, and lo and behold the gun's in the right hand, so she took it, she secured the weapon, I took it from her. Oh, she forgot to tell us that. These people think we're stupid. They think we're stupid. So this next interview is Massachusetts State Trooper Paul Keneally, done same day of, not the day of the incident. This is February 14th, 2020. Detective Lieutenant Gerard Medaliano and Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan are in the room. There's a different attorney present. Name is Daniel Moynihan. But for all the others, it was the attorney, probably because he's with Mass State Police and the other one was with Boston PD. All right. So Keneally, Trooper Keneally was assigned to the Route 9 area and was in full uniform on the date of incident. Trooper Keneally stated that he was monitoring the police station Area B radio channel, that someone had pulled a gun on a security officer at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. Keneally stated that he started to head eastbound on Route 9. Neely stated that the scanner in his police vehicle that he was monitoring the Boston police from was breaking up. So I guess he's a Mass State police officer who's assigned to monitoring the Boston police radio. Okay. So he said that it was breaking up, but he heard something related to Fenwood Road. Trooper Keneally stated that he only would decipher a broadcast about shot, the word shot. Keneally stated that he couldn't hear anything else about it. He stated that he inquired with his dispatcher as to what was happening at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. Keneally stated that he then heard a broadcast on his state police channel stating that they're on Huntington Ave. Keneally stated that he had then heard entering Route 9. Trooper Keneally stated that he intended to deploy stop sticks on Route 9. Trooper Keneally stated that he knew of a cutout on Route 9 that he felt would be safe to deploy the stop sticks. So this must be those things that, you pull out and it like stops the tires. You get flat tires. So Trooper Keneally stated that as he is almost at that location, he heard a broadcast that the pursuit was at Chestnut Hill Avenue. Keneally stated that prior to deploying the stop sticks, he inquired with his dispatcher to confirm if a Boston police officer had been shot or if the suspect had been shooting at the police. Keneally stated at that point he doesn't tell you what they told you, though. So we don't even know what his state of mind is going at this. He just said he asked. Well, did they say he shot a police officer? Because no one was shot. And Godin should have known that he wasn't shot. All right, so Trooper Keneally stated that at this point he looked up and saw the suspect vehicle passing him. Keneally stated that he observed several Boston police officer cruisers pursuing the suspect. He stated that he made the turn and headed westbound. Keneally stated that at a short time later, he heard a broadcast from Boston officers that they had lost the suspect vehicle. Keneally stated that he observed two Boston police cruisers then turn right off of Route 9. Keneally stated that he looked ahead and observed the aftermath of a crash at Hammond Street at Route 9. Keneally stated that he immediately notified his dispatcher of the crash and requested an ambulance. Trooper Keneally stated that he observed the suspect vehicle that had traveled a distance from the intersection. He stated that he observed the suspect flee from his vehicle toward the right. Keneally stated that he pulled around the suspect vehicle and exited from his marked cruiser. Keneally stated that the suspect had fallen in a mulch area. Keneally stated that he ran up onto the sidewalk, stated that the suspect attempted to stand up and was on one knee. Keneally stated that he had planned to tackle the suspect when a Boston police officer standing to his right yelled out that the suspect has a gun on his chest. Trooper Keneally stated that he stopped and drew his weapon. Keneally stated that the officers were issuing verbal commands to drop the gun repeatedly. Trooper Keneally stated that the suspect reached into his chest. Keneally stated that he knew the suspect had his hand on something coming out, believed it to be a gun from his knowledge at that time. Okay. He never saw it though. So you just believed that it was a gun, even though, yeah. Trooper Keneally stated that he believed that the suspect was going to pull the gun out. Keneally stated that he discharged his firearm and then he reholstered his weapon. Keneally stated that he and a female Boston police officer approached the suspect to place him into custody. Keneally stated that as she secured the suspect's right hand, the gun was in the suspect's right hand. Keneally stated that he reached in underneath him and took custody of the suspect's weapon. So he reached in underneath him. What? He reached in underneath him and took custody of the weapon. So you just said it was in her right hand and now you're saying it's underneath him? I'm so confused. And took custody of the weapon. Trooper Keneally stated that he noticed that the suspect's weapon had blood on it, so he dropped the weapon onto the mulch. Keneally stated that he did not know how many times he discharged. Keneally stated that he was only aware of the officer to his left discharging his weapon. Keneally stated that at this time he discharged his weapon, he was in fear of his life, that his life was at stake. He was in fear that his life was at stake due to a weapon he never saw and basically he just went along with group mentality. They all were like, "Oh, gun!" and shoot, and that's basically what happened. All right, now we're going to move on to the officer's firearms, which also is a little interesting. So let's read. All of the discharging Boston police officers surrendered their department issued firearms, on scene. I requested that Sergeant Detective Thomas Pratt, assigned to the firearm discharge investigation team, document all the discharging officers' department issued firearms. So Leroy Fernandez had a Glock 22 with the serial number, contained 1 round in the chamber and 13 rounds in the magazine. He had 2 spare magazines, each contained 15 rounds, indicative of 2 rounds discharged. So that's about how many rounds he fired. Police officer Corey Thomas had a Glock 22, contained 1 round in the chamber and 12 rounds in the magazine. The 2 spare magazines each contained 15 rounds, indicative of 3 rounds discharged. So I'm just going to highlight what the final total was for their rounds discharged. Officer Michael St. Peter, he contained 1 round in the chamber and 5 rounds in the magazine. The 2 spare magazines each contained 15 rounds, indicative of 10 rounds discharged. That was at the Boston scene, I'm sorry. Police officer St. Peter's rounds were fired at the Boston scene, not at the Brookline scene. Police officer David Godin, 1 round in the chamber, 5 rounds in the magazine, no spare magazines due to the magazine change on the Boston scene, indicative of 8 rounds discharged in Brookline. Police officer Godin also discharged at the Boston scene. This count does not reflect rounds discharged at the Boston scene. I was like, where are those? Why don't they have the counts for that? Keep him in mind, FYI, the Officer Godin's firearm, because we're not done with him. Officer Brenda Figueroa had a Glock, also contained 1 round in the chamber, 12 rounds in the magazine, 2 spare magazines, each contained 15 rounds, indicative of 3 rounds discharged. Police Officer Joseph McMenamy contained 1 round in the chamber and 5 rounds in the magazine. 2 spare magazines contained 15, indicative of 10 rounds discharged. At the time of the incident, Police Officer Godin was in possession of Police Officer Jordan Wells' department issued firearm. An investigation revealed that Police Officer Wells was in custody of Police Officer Godin's firearm. So not only did they do everything wrong in this case, leading up to and including the shooting of Justin Root, but they also didn't even follow their own protocol in leaving the police department with their own firearms on them. So that's just how messed up this case is and how poorly done this investigation was, and how, not even investigation, how poorly done this whole situation was handled from start to finish, even before they left the department that morning. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is, who does that? How do they have the wrong firearm? They said something like it was all in a lockbox, and it was in one of the interviews, something like all the guns were in a lockbox and they had mixed up the key or something. I don't know, or key, or the key opened multiple lockboxes or something like that was the excuse, which makes no sense to me. But that's what we were told, and that's where we're at. So we know Officer Godin had somebody else's firearm. This Jordan Wells wasn't even at the scene, or at least wasn't one of the individuals who was accused of shooting Justin. So I don't know if he was at the scene or not, but we know he was. He didn't shoot. All right, so all of the officers have their range qualifications, and this just shows when they got them. All right, so now we have the decedent information. So they have a history on Justin. This is interesting. This is the history of Justin according to the Boston Police report on this incident. So this is a brief summary of Justin Root and is not meant to be a comprehensive account of Root's criminal or behavioral history. Justin with an O, Root, aka Justin with an I, Root, was 41 years old at the time of his death. A white non-Hispanic male. Root had an active Massachusetts driver's license. Root resided at 13 Catbird Street in Mattapan. Root has a 2012 Chevrolet Volt with Massachusetts registration registered in his name. This is the same vehicle that Root operated in this incident. There's some things that were redacted in the report. Then it says a review of available Boston police incident reports indicates a pattern of Root impersonating law enforcement and military personnel. So this is huge because they knew that this man had a history of this, and yet they went in there guns blazing. This is so wrong. Like, this is just proving to me that these individuals, yeah, granted, they might not have known that it was Justin upon approaching him, but they should have not gone up, ready to just draw their gun with no cover or anything to someone who supposedly had a gun. So they absolutely should have, and they're trained to de-escalate situations like this, so it doesn't have to lead to someone's wrongful death. But yet, here we are. In many of these incidents, Root is in possession of a replica firearm, fake badges, and handcuffs. There are many incidents showing assaultive behavior as well as Root's failure to take prescribed medications. I don't know if any of that is true. I couldn't verify with you. I'm sure we'll get more into the complaint and things like that of what is true. As far as I know, there have been um, no uh, incidents. There's no evidence, I'll say, of Justin being violent or having behavior where he assaults people. This is the first I'm hearing of it. So this could be just total false information from this officer trying to beef up his stuff about Justin so that there's less culpability on the officers, is my opinion. On March 26th, 2019, Root was found in the parking lot of Area B3 where he claimed that he was working for the CIA. He was found to be in possession of a fake badge. So this is obviously, about a year before the incident where he is shot. Among the items recovered from his vehicle, the same vehicle used on February 7th, 2020 during that incident were a BB gun, false, a paintball gun, and two spring assisted knives. I'm not sure about the knives either. All right, so on August 6th, 2013, a report was filed by the Northeastern University Police Department reporting that their officers encountered Root in the area of Forsyth and Greenleaf Streets, where Root told officers that he was employed by the United States government in a black ops capacity and needed to conduct a count of the bathrooms at Northeastern University. When the officers attempted to detain Root for mental evaluation, see, that's what you do first. You don't just go shooting. He became combative and resisted arrest. Well, he wasn't doing anything wrong, so why would he be arrested? He was eventually subdued and placed under arrest. While the arresting officer was processing Root, he received a call from Barbara Root, who is Justin's mother. Redacted explained to the officer that Root has a mental illness and was supposed to be going to the hospital. On January 16th, 2012, Redacted called the police to report that she believed that her son's, so this is Barbara, they said her name and then they redacted her name, which makes no sense. So Barbara said that her son's apartment had been broken into. She told officers that her son had been hospitalized for a few months and had not been staying in the apartment. On August 17th, 2011, Root was arrested after attempting to gain entrance into residences on Pond Street in Jamaica Plain. During that incident, two replica firearms loaded with BBs, handcuffs, and a replica hand grenade were recovered. This incident was also the topic of a BRIC Officer Safety and Awareness Bulletin. On December 22nd, 2010, Redacted called the police to report that her son, so this is Barbara again, Justin, who was bipolar and off his medication, had threatened to get a gun and shoot her and himself if his doctor kept him on his medication. Justin Root was subsequently transported to Faulkner Hospital. Again, I have nothing to substantiate or not these claims. This is just I'm just reading what's on the report. I'm sure well, we may find out more in some of the other court documents here, especially from the family, get their side of it. All right, so on May 21st, 2003, Redacted called police to report that her son was not taking his medications, was hallucinating, and had left the house. In that report, she indicates that her son, Justin Root, is prescribed Geodon and Seroquel, I have no idea if I'm saying that right, based on his diagnosis of being a schizophrenic. So we know he is schizophrenic and, does she say somewhere? Yeah, bipolar. So in 2010, we know he's bipolar. By 2013, we also know he's been uh, diagnosed with schizophrenia. It should be noted that Sergeant Detective Earl Perkins responded to the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health, located at 75 Fenwood Road, in an attempt to secure any potential video. An employee of DMH indicated that they had an idea of what happened and asked Sergeant Detective Perkins if JR had been involved. Sergeant Detective Perkins understood this statement to be a reference to Justin Root. Okay, what does that prove? What the hell does that sentence have any basis to do in this report? That makes no sense. Because some people at a Department of Mental Health were like, oh, does this have to do with JR? What does that have to do with anything? That's gossip. Okay, synopsis of incident. Here is what the police say happened, which we know is all a bunch of lies. Please refer to Sergeant Detective John Broderick's report related to the details of the Boston scene after a confrontation with police in the area of Vining Street and Fenwood Road with an individual later identified as Justin Root. Police officers Godin and St. Peter discharged their department issued firearms. No, Godin actually didn't. He discharged somebody else's firearm. So, words matter, and they're inaccurate right there. Mr. Root fled from the Boston scene in a silver 2012 Chevrolet Volt, Massachusetts, with the registration in Massachusetts. Police officer Godin notified Boston Police Operations of the firearm discharges, that Mr. Root had been struck by the gunfire, and that they were in pursuit of Root on Huntington Avenue towards the town of Brookline. Did you say he shot me? Did you say he was shooting at me? Because that matters too, because that would have been not accurate if you informed them that he shot you too because he didn't have a gun. But that was originally what the reports were, remember? And everybody, what's his face, the Massachusetts trooper Keneally was, he said that, and while he was in pursuit of Root, that he called the station to determine if it was in fact true that shots were fired at an officer, which they were not. So we never even got an answer on that. On Friday, February 7th, 2020, at approximately 9:20 a.m., police officer Michael St. Peter, assigned to the Canine Unit, was working a privately paid detail at the Brigham and Women's Hospital when he was waved down by a security officer at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, who alerted him that someone had brandished a firearm at him after the security officer requested that he move his car. At 9:21:06 a.m., the Boston Police Operations Area B dispatcher dispatched police officers from Area B2 for a report of a person that had threatened security with a gun after they requested to move his vehicle. At 9:22:28 a.m., the dispatcher described the suspect vehicle as a silver two-door Colt, which is not true. It's a Volt, right? Operating on Fenwood Road towards Francis Street. At 9:22:55 a.m., the dispatcher updated the call that the suspect had the gun in a holster on his hip. Okay, that's also inaccurate because everyone said that it was on his chest. Police officer St. Peter, in full uniform and driving his assigned marked Boston Police Canine Department vehicle, along with police officer David Godin, assigned to Area B2, also in full uniform and driving his assigned Area B2 marked department vehicle, responded to the incident. I have reviewed that the Boston Police turret recordings of this incident. That's the words. I'm just reading what's on the paper. The It's just grammar bothers me. The Boston Police Area B dispatcher did confirm an officer involved shooting and shots fired at the Boston scene as the pursuit started. At 9:23:18 a.m., a police officer confirmed the report that the suspect had pulled a gun on security. At 9:23:42 a.m., a police officer broadcasted yelling Fenwood Road. At 9:24:20 a.m., a police officer broadcasted shots fired. At 9:24:44 a.m., a police officer broadcasted code 303. At 9:24:51 a.m., the dispatcher broadcasted that a code 303, the Boston Police code for an officer involved shooting, had occurred. At 9:25:01 a.m., a police officer was broadcasting the pursuit. At 9:25:15 a.m., a police officer broadcasted that the suspect had been shot during the incident. At 9:27:06 a.m., Captain Robert Sicelo or something inquired on the channel while officers were pursuing the suspect vehicle. The dispatcher informed Captain Sicelo that the suspect had been shot and there had been a code 303. At 9:28:06 a.m., the dispatcher broadcasted that the Massachusetts State Police and Brookline Police had been notified of the pursuit. At 9:28:45 a.m., a police officer broadcasted that he had lost sight of the suspect. At approximately 9:24:54 a.m., officers at the Brookline scene reported shots fired and that the suspect was down. At approximately, so they lost him, and within 90 seconds or so, or less than 90 seconds, less or a little over a minute, they have already shot him. After they lost sight of him, he's already down. How does that happen? At approximately 9:32 a.m., the Area B dispatcher broadcasted that the Brigham and Women's Hospital was reporting a person shot. The victim of the shooting was identified as Justin Desmarais or something like that. It was later determined that an officer's round had struck Mr. Demir. Okay, that's the valet who got shot in the eye by an officer, not Justin because he didn't have a gun. I don't know how many more times we can repeat that. So, Boston police officers Brenda Figueroa, Joseph McMenamy, Leroy Fernandez, and Corey Thomas all joined the pursuit of Mr. Root. All of the aforementioned police officers were dressed in full Boston police uniforms and operating marked department vehicles. The pursuit entered the town of Brookline, where Root's speeds were in excess of 70 miles per hour. Trooper Keneally attempted to deploy stop sticks on Route 9 West, but was unable to do so. If you recall, it started out very slow. It wasn't a high-speed chase at all. It was a regular speed chase, because Justin just got in his car and was driving. But then he started speeding up when the officers started escalating things. Again, they escalated the situation. They performed a pit maneuver, which made him inevitably speed up to get away from them, which caused him to collide with three other cars, and then his car was unable to operate anymore. As the involved police officers entered the area of Boylston Street and Hammond Street, they observed the aftermath of a multi vehicle collision. Root's vehicle was located west of the intersection and had sustained heavy damage, including losing the wheel/tire from the vehicle. The collision was captured by a town of Brookline traffic camera. The camera was captured or the camera also captured Root's exit from the vehicle and flee towards the Star Market parking lot where he fell to the ground. A female patron was also observed to begin to approach Root, appearing to offer aid. Root was able to return to his feet as police officers Godin, Figueroa, McMenamy, Thomas, and Fernandez arrived on scene and exited from their vehicles. Did he? Because we know that this female patron said that he couldn't get back up. Trooper Keneally pulled his vehicle ahead of the Boston officers and exited from his marked vehicle, department vehicle. The officers had formed a line formation facing Route where they issued multiple verbal commands. Police Officer Figueroa had activated her body-worn camera during the pursuit. Police Officer Figueroa's body-worn camera captured the verbal commands. Several witnesses also stated that they heard officers issue verbal commands. Trooper Keneally was prepared to tackle Root when he was all alerted by the Boston police officer that Root had a firearm in the area of his chest. See, is it hip or chest? They can't even make up their minds. As officers continued to issue verbal commands, which in the video they give like all of them give verbal commands all at once, and he has no time to even respond, and they shoot him. As officers continued to give verbal commands, Root moved his hands inside his jacket where he was wearing a shoulder holster and contained a replica firearm. Several officers observed the firearm and alerted the other officers on the scene by yelling, "Gun." Simultaneously, police officers Godin, Fernandez, Figueroa, McMenemy, Thomas, and Trooper Keneally intentionally discharged their department issued firearms. Root fell to the ground, where his firearm had landed underneath his body. Okay, so was it underneath? Was it on top of him? Was it to the side of him? Was it in the mulch? Like there's all sorts of different variations of where it was found. But this report says it was underneath him. But all the troopers said different things. It was also found in his hand. I mean, there are according to the Trooper Keneally's interview, he said that he took it out of that Brenda Figueroa took it out of Justin's right hand, gave it to him, and then he dropped it. But now this says the firearm landed underneath his body. And that was I mean, the thing that I just said, the thing that Trooper Keneally, his narrative of how he found the gun, it's in this report. And then a few paragraphs later, they contradict themselves, saying the firearm was underneath his body. Make up your minds, guys. Like, your own report has various contradictions. Trooper Keneally and Police Officer Figueroa approached Root. In reviewing Police Officer Figueroa's body worn camera footage, the audio captured verbal commands of get down, and let me see your hands prior to shots being fired. As a result of the placement of the body worn camera, when Police Officer Figueroa raised her hands to discharge, the camera was blocked. After the shots, the officers indicate the suspect is still armed with a firearm and is still moving. You just said it's under his body, but now you're saying he has a firearm still. He's still armed and he's still moving. See how this doesn't make sense? Police Officer Figueroa handcuffed the suspect as Trooper Keneally secured the suspect's weapon, at which point he determined it was a replica firearm. Did he determine that it was fake? And how? Is he a gun expert? Like, I don't know. The fake BB gun that was planted at the scene? Fallon Ambulance, the EMS service for the town of Brookline, responded to the Brookline scene at 9:35 a.m. and transported Root to the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Mr. Root was pronounced dead at 10:06 a.m. by Dr. Odom. Mr. Root had sustained multiple gunshot wounds to his torso, left arm, right hand, left leg, and back area. Well, considering how many rounds were fired, yeah, that you would have a lot of wounds based on uh, what the officers did. So here's how they found themselves. Were they guilty of misconduct? Of course not. So this guy who wrote this report, Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan, determined through witness statements, police officer interviews, recovered evidence, forensic analysis, police turret communications, and through the review of video surveillance and body-worn camera footage that, in direct response to the threat of great bodily injury or death to himself and other officers, that Boston police officer, David Godin, intentionally discharged his department issued firearm. Uh, he also says that he's determined that police officer Godin has no less drastic means available to defend himself. So there was nothing else he could have done to de-escalate the situation. Are you kidding me? There were no less drastic means available to defend himself against a person he firmly believed was in possession of a firearm and had used the firearm to shoot at him at the Boston scene. I have concluded that Police Officer Godin was in compliance with Boston Police Department Rule 303. So no harm, no foul. He's okay. It's okay for an officer to just shoot randomly at civilians without assessing the situation or de-escalating things. It's totally cool. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. This Sergeant Sullivan also determined through all those things again that Joseph McMenemy did intentionally fire his firearm. Same thing here. He firmly believes that he was in possession of a firearm and he had used the firearm to shoot um, his fellow officer to shoot at a fellow officer. He's saying that he believes this guy McMenemy believes that Root had a gun and was shooting at the officer at Brookline. I'm sorry, at Boston. I have concluded that police officer McMenemy was in compliance. Wonderful. Same thing here for Corey Thomas. He intentionally discharged his firearm and he was also in compliance. Uh, Same for who's this now? Leroy Fernandez intentionally discharged and was in compliance. Corey Thomas, same thing, same thing. Who else? Figueroa, same thing. I have determined that Officer Godin was in compliance with Boston Police Rule 303, Section 3, training and qualification. So all of them are going to be in compliance with their training, according to the sergeant. I have further determined that Police Officer Figueroa immediately notified Boston Police Operations of the firearm discharges. I have concluded that Police Officer Figueroa was in compliance. As a result of Figueroa's broadcast notifying operations of the firearm discharges, I have concluded that Godin was in compliance with Boston Rule 303. As a result of her notifying Boston Police, Joseph McMenemy is in compliance, Leroy, Corey, all of them are in compliance. Okay. Based on officers' statements, the review of video surveillance in the blood in Mr. Root's vehicle, that Mr. Root was initially shot at the Boston scene, the video depicts Mr. Root significantly limping to his vehicle. You can see in this image, it's kind of difficult to see. I'm going to try to make it larger here, but this is an image of one of the paintball guns that Justin had. You can see I'm kind of outlining it here. It's hard to see, but there it is. Um, so it's clear. Like you could barely even see it because it matches the floor because it's clear. You know, it's blending into the floor in the image. So that is what he had on him at the scene and what was actually shot into two pieces by the first encounter with the police. So, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner has preliminarily determined that Mr. Root's cause of death was a result of multiple gunshot wounds by law enforcement weapons and his manner of death to be a homicide. So, it is a homicide. Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan determined through police interviews and all that stuff that Michael St. Peter did not discharge his department issued firearm at the Brookline scene. Police officer David Godin was not wearing his body worn camera at the time of discharge. The body worn camera was inside of his assigned department vehicle. We see in someone else's camera footage that he takes it off and throws it into his car, or tosses it. I shouldn't say throw, but he tosses it into his car right before approaching Justin. So, why? Why did he do that? Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan determined that the officers believed Mr. Root had brandished a firearm at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. The officers further knew that the suspect had been involved in an officer involved shooting. No, they didn't know that because that's not what happened. and had been shot by a police officer. Yes, Justin had been shot. Justin did not initiate the shooting. He didn't do anything to cause the incident or to escalate it to the situation where it became. On March 9th, 2020, Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey issued his findings related to his review findings and conclusions of the events of Friday, February 7th. In light of District Attorney's findings, he determined that 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 he would take no action against the officers involved in the shooting of Justin Root and found the shooting justified and reasonable. And in the next episode, we will read through Morrissey's report, as well as I'm going to try to fit in both. We might not get through all of it, but Morrissey and ADA Dolly. So, you know, that remember, it's a multi jurisdictional investigation. So there's the Norfolk County who oversee, you know, they're in charge of Brookline, but then Boston is Suffolk County. So we have the Suffolk County ADA who also drafted a report and found that they did not do anything wrong. So nobody's taking accountability, as you can see. And we'll get into that even more in the next couple of episodes. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.